Hi guys, my name is Trinity, and if you're here to see my tentative February MBR. So let me explain something I did. I have been really trying to get away from TBRs. I really don't like doing them because I feel like I get sucked into very specific obligations and then I just don't want to read any of the books. But I sat down a couple days ago and I was like, you know what? Let's draw some prompt cards. Let's do this and see what I come up with. And then I looked at my list and I was like, this is a really good list. I think I might keep it as like a pool of possibilities that I could pull from for my TBR. And mainly, I just kind of wanted some direction in what to choose next because lately I have been in a read all of the books kind of mindset and just haven't been able to pick what I want to read. Plus, being slightly free of SPSFC for a little while, my brain is like, read all the books. Read all the books you missed out on while you were reading SPSFC books. And not that I didn't enjoy my time, but you know, when you get sucked into a specific genre and you are a multi-genre reader, it's like, man, it's hard. So the first prompt that I drew was a book with a map. And I chose Empire of Exiles by Aaron M. Evans. Say hi to my dog. He has decided he's coming up here. Oh, quit griping at me. Quit your griping. Why are you griping? No, I don't want kisses. No, I don't want kisses. Just lay down. Empire of Exiles by Aaron M. Evans. It says, magic, mystery, and revolution collide in this fantasy epic where an unlikely team of mages, scribes, and archivists must band together to unearth a conspiracy that might topple their empire. So that's pretty much what I know about it, and I've heard quite a few people talk about it who had advanced copies of the book. They really enjoyed it, but I've been looking forward to it for quite some time, and then I finally picked it up last month, and I just want to read it. It sounds really, really good. The next prompt card I chose was a purple cover. Touch of Darkness I got for Christmas, and it is a fantasy romance that is a Hades Persephone retelling, and I'm on a mission, like I've said in a lot of my recent videos, to find fantasy romance with a great fantasy plot alongside the romance. And I've heard that this one is pretty good. I've also heard it's pretty spicy. So we shall see. We shall see if this can fulfill that. Then the next card I got was to use a random letter generator to find the last name, like the first initial of the last name of an author to read. And it was T. And so I picked We Men of Ash and Shadow by H.L. Tinsley. I have been looking forward to this. It is self-pub. All I know about this is that it's super dark and the main character is a mercenary, so that speaks to me. And kind of an anti-hero, which again speaks to me. Because you know, Galhero is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I'm really looking forward to this. I do have the physical and the audiobook of this, so a good immersive read is probably in order here, and I'm going to look forward to that. The next prompt was highest rated book on my TBR, and that would be Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I actually just recently purchased this, and I have really enjoyed Barbara Kingsolver, but this book is coming in at a 4.56 with 41,540 ratings. So wow, that's pretty dang good. But it says, set in the Appalachian Mountains, the story of a boy born to a teenage single mother in a single wide trailer with no assets beyond his dead father's good looks and copper-colored hair, a caustic wit, and fierce talent for survival. In a plot that never pauses for breath, relayed in his own unsparing voice, he braves the modern perils of foster care, child labor, derelict schools, athletic success, addiction, disastrous loves, and crushing losses. Through all of it, he reckons with his own invisibility in a popular culture where even the superheroes have abandoned the rural people in favor of cities. So this is like a coming-of-age historical fiction, and by the title of the book, you probably have realized that it is a play on David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. But I absolutely love Barbara Kingsolver's writing. She is one of the first authors I actually fell in love with whenever I was younger with The Bean Trees. And then I read The Poisonwood Bible, which has still remained one of my favorite books of all time. And I have been wanting to venture outside of fantasy for quite a while. I've just kind of felt stuck in a rut when I get to reading only one genre because I do read across the board. So this one I'm really excited to get around to kind of break up all of the fantasy and sci-fi I have been reading lately. Okay, the cards weren't quite so nice to me this time. Actually, this is one of the books that I am most anticipating reading this year. I've talked about it already, but I don't like to cry. And I know that this is actually one of the books that I'm anticipating actually making me cry, and that would be Legacy of the Bright Watch by Crystal Matar. And it actually said place in the title, and I don't know if the Bright Wash is actually a place, but I'm going with it. It says, follow the law and you'll stay safe. But what if the law is wrong? That's kind of the tagline. I'm going to read the synopsis here, and I'm going to get this name wrong. That's just how it's going to be. Tashu's faith in the law is beginning to crack. 3 years ago, he stood by when the authority condemned Jason to the brutality of the rift for non-compliance. When Tashu refused to register as tainted, the laws had to be upheld. He never doubted his job as a regulation officer before, but 3 years of watching your son wither away can break down even the strongest convictions. When a dead girl washed up on the bank of the Brightwash, it is a place, tattooed and mutilated, where had she come from? Who would tattoo a child? Was it the same person who killed her? Why was he the only one who cared? So kind of just gonna stop there. I don't like knowing much about books before I go into them. I know that I try to give you guys a synopsis, but for this one, I know enough about it to know that it's going to be heartbreaking. I know enough about it to know that the writing is supposed to be superb, especially like in the community that I'm a part of. This is a favorite, and I just want to go into it kind of blind. And that's all I need to know. This is all I need to know about this book. And I'm just so excited to get to it and scared. Okay, next is a debut, and man, did I have a lot to pick from, but let's just go with one that I am very excited to get to and haven't had a chance to do it yet, but I do have the audiobook of this, and I do have the ebook of this, and I will probably buy the physical copy of this because I love the cover. It would be The Hellborn King by Christopher Brenning. Now, from what I understand of this one, it is dark. And a lot of people who like the 5 Warrior Angels have loved this series. And so I'm going into it with the hopes that it is the similar dark vibes that I'm expecting from, that I've gotten from 5 Warrior Angels, that I anticipate getting from Darkblade Assassin, which that was one that I considered putting on here. But because I had the audiobook for this one, I actually put this one on here first. But those are the vibes I want in my fantasy. I love dark fantasy. I really love reading about like corruption and political intrigue and, you know, war and all that stuff. It all speaks to me, and I feel like The Hellborn King is going to just be another one of those. And it says, a kingdom at war, a royal family at war with itself. After the massacre of his people, Damien Dreadfire leads a patchwork army of unlikely allies against the kingdom of Betanthea. I hope I said that right. The alliance teeters on the edge of a knife as old rivalries between clans threaten to tear it apart. With the help of his trusted friend Inar and a strange mystic, Damien launches a bold offensive that will decide the future of the Freelands. Short on time and even shorter on men, the fate of a once vibrant culture and its people rests on the outcome of the next battle. Now, I do know that this also has warring siblings, and I love that because we're going to get into some political intrigue with that, and I am down to figuring out how that all unfolds. Next, I needed to pick a book published after 2015, and again, this was really difficult because I have a lot. I have a lot to read, but I have kind of put off reading Call of the Bone Ships for no reason whatsoever, other than SPSFC. I really had a hard time getting through some of those books because they weren't my style, and you guys know I'm kind of the queen of the DNF, so I really had to force myself and push myself through some of those. Even though in the end I could see that they were good books, like they just weren't what I wanted to read. They weren't my taste, and so anyway, that is a whole nother video. But Call of the Bone Ships, I actually was supposed to read last month and didn't, but I want to catch up, and so I'm going to put it on this February MBR, and I will probably read it pretty soon because it's one that I am just dying to get to. I really love the Bone Ships, and I really love R.J. Barker's writing. This is a seafaring adventure that I would kind of compare to Live Ship. And this is one, though, where you're kind of dropped into the world and you have to figure out things as you go along. And the language of the world is slightly different from what we know. So some of it is a little difficult to pick up at first. But I think once you get through the first book, a lot of that kind of just settles down. Like you kind of settle into the world, and even like halfway through the book, you kind of settle into it and realize what they're talking about and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people are unsettled by that. But I do think that it turns into a great story. I think I gave The Bone Ships 5 stars, and I've heard it only gets better. So I'm very excited to continue with that series. Next is seasonal. So I have been meaning to read The Bear and the Nightingale for forever. And then one of my best friends started reading it, and I was like, okay, you're gonna make me read this. And she's like, yeah, I am. I'm gonna make you read it. And I feel like I'm really gonna love this trilogy. I feel like it's going to speak to that part of me that just likes fairy tales, that just likes being wrapped up in great atmosphere. And, you know, since it's winter, it's the right time. I just need to get into it. By Catherine Arden, if I didn't say that. But you guys have been around BookTube for a while, I would imagine, and have seen Bear and the Nightingale all over the place. But yeah, that was my seasonal pick. Next would be an illustrated cover, and a book that I actually have put off reading for no particular reason. Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. My mom actually got me this for Christmas last year. And I just keep forgetting about it because it's on my Audible account. But I know a lot of people who have really enjoyed this story. And so I really wanted to, get around to reading it. It was nominated for Best Fantasy of 2020. In 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be in the wild, dark days before the burnings began. But now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it at the ballot box. I have been really interested in this because 1, I love historical fiction, 2, I love witches, 3, I love fantasy, and it's touted as all 3. And I'm very, very excited for it. I just haven't gotten around to it. And I think it's one of those things, like I've said in previous videos, with my ADHD, things that are out of sight are out of mind, and sometimes I just forget that they're there. And like if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. That's kind of how my brain works. But I really want to get around to reading this. I think I might enjoy it. There's a chance I won't, but there's a chance I will. And I really just wanted to read it for quite some time. All right, the next prompt I got was an author that is a different ethnicity from myself. And so I recently bought Fledgling, and I would really like to get around to reading it. I know it's kind of a sci fantasy that's one of the first like really popular vampire stories, and me being a fan of vampires, I just really wanted to get into this and read it because I feel like a bad fan of vampires for not having read it yet. And it's fairly short, so I feel like it would be a quick, fun read. I don't know about fun, because I know Octavia E. Butler, she really focuses on some of the issues of the times and delves into a lot deeper themes than just what's on the surface. So I don't know if it'll be fun, but I think it'll be enjoyable. The next prompt was another that's fictional world. And I was like, okay, everything on my shelves, because I read fantasy and sci-fi. Well, sci-fi might be not a fictional world, but you know, I read fantasy. How am I going to go wrong here? But a series that I have been wanting to start for a while, I had meant to start last year and didn't, mainly because I was reading another series by this author, Foundry Side. I really want to read The City of Stairs. And recently, I have seen a lot of people post their favorite like fantasy series, and I've seen this one come up a couple of times, and I really think I will enjoy this. I know that these are all companion novels. They're not exactly like a series that follows the same character. Each book has different characters that it follows, and I know that they are fantasy with a horror element to them, which Robert Jackson Bennett is kind of great at doing anyway. It kind of mixes fantasy, sci-fi, and horror all in one, and I love it. I really enjoy it, and so I want to read something else by him. So as you guys know, the next one was bought used, and as you guys know, 90% of my books come from the buy-sell trade. I usually won't buy a book unless I can find it at the buy-sell trade. I say that. I have Book of the Month, I have Fairy Loot and stuff like that, but I don't tend to venture to Barnes and Noble or Books a Million very often. And part of that is because of when I buy books, I take them back and then I end up with credit, and that just makes the books themselves like $1 after I return a few. But there is one that I wanted to add to this list, and I don't know if I will have finished A Universe of Wishes by the time February is over, but I did want to read this one in the winter. If I don't get around to it, it's fine. I'll save it for later, or maybe read it in March if it's still cold and I want to get those vibes. But Dead of Winter by Keelan Patrick Burke, I found it at the Buy Sell Trade, and it's a collection of short stories that focuses on the winter and winter vibes and the cold. And so I wanted to read these and see what I thought about them. It was a book I randomly picked up at the Buy Sell Trade. Like I said, I didn't know much about the author at all. I just wanted the short stories because they sounded like something that would be up my alley. Next would be a book with a pretty cover, and that would be Godblind by Anna Stevens. I'm dying to get into this. I have been wanting to read this for so long. It's sat on my TBR cart for so long, and I just haven't read it yet. So I'm adding it to the list. A book with a 5-word title. I have added The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I didn't like the third book. But I liked the first 2 books so much that I really want to see where this story goes. I really do. Like, I know we had our first arc with the first 3 books, and the third book kind of petered out. But yeah, I feel like I invested time into this series, reading 3 chunker books, that I want to see if Jennifer L. Armentrout like can bring back the magic that was from Blood and Ash. Like, I want to see if this can happen. And so I have added this book to see if that's the case. I don't know if I'll get around to it. I really don't, but there's a good chance I will, just so I can figure out for myself. And also my whole project of finding fantasy romance with great fantasy plots. This one had one. It had one. And it fell off in the third one. So we'll see. Then I had to pick a book that was published last year, and one that has hit a couple of my TBRs and never got read is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. I actually was looking forward to reading this. Like I said, it hit a couple of my TBRs. I planned to read it, and then I just never did. And then I bought Fire Endless whenever it was available from Book of the Month, which finishes out the duology. So I really just want to get around to reading it. And I think it's going to be a book that I really enjoy. I think it's going to have that creepy gothic atmosphere that I'm looking for. I know that A River Enchanted is kind of set on an island, and these girls start disappearing, and the main character is summoned back home to help find them. And there's a bunch of magic that just is running through this island and that is connected to the island. And I think it's going to be really, really cool. And I'm really excited to get into it. Then I had to pick a book that was my most recent purchase, and that would be In the Shadow of the Gods by Rachel Doone. This is one I picked up because Michael R. Fletcher was talking about it and said that it is the book that, or the series that people who love dark fantasy need to invest in. It says, a breathtaking talent makes her debut with this first book in a dark epic fantasy trilogy in which a mismatched band of mortals led by violent, secretive men must stand against a pair of resentful gods to save their world. And so, yeah, mortals and the gods battling it out, I will always love. It's a trope I will always love. And I love dark fantasy, so I'm very much looking forward to this one. It seems like it has a bit of a Norse vibe. I'm not exactly sure, but it does tout that it is mythology. And the covers are very Nordic. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one. And it is my most recent purchase. I purchased it in No Land for Heroes about the same time. So I had a hard time choosing which one was going to go on the list. But the second book to No Land for Heroes releases in April. So I figured if I read No Land for Heroes in March, then I can just pick up the next one in April. All right, that is it for me today. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!